Welcome to another video. In this video, I'm gonna answer the number one question that I get asked every single week, which is how do I think AI is gonna impact or affect the info product and coaching industry? To be quite frank with you, I just think AI brings so many new facets into it, and right now is the most exciting time to start, scale, or build your info and coaching program. And so in this video, I'm gonna switch to the iPad mode and break down exactly how I think AI is going to affect not only the B2C space, just like more like for beginners, business to consumer space, but also the B2B in between business, info, and product space. So with that said, we'll head into the iPad. And basically what I'm really going to drive down in both the B2C and the B2B space are a few different components. So number one, that's sort of like the offer, right? Then I would say like internal, which is like, how does it affect like teams? Does it affect the way team structures and all of that stuff it is composed? And ultimately it's just like, I'll just say like others, that could be like marketing, sales, and all of that jizzle. Now I want to start with the B2C space just because I think it's a very interesting one. I actually believe as a whole, whether that's B2B or B2C, I actually think like the bell curve meme that's fairly well known is really about to reoccur again. So, basically on the bell curve meme, the way it kind of works is like you say, here's something, for example, like sell info, right? Now, I really think this is happening. It's like sell the information. Then here you have this super complex stuff, like sell the system, sell like this crazy thing. And then you really kind of go back to like sell info. I actually think that's happening right now. So obviously 2018, 2019, like we're fairly new. And what you really were selling was like information, right? People wanted to have information how to do X, Y, and Z, right? And then on top of that, what was really happening is a lot of people then were posting content. A lot of it got diluted. You had piracy courses, all of that to jizzle. And as a result of it, now everyone's like this complex stuff, like this system and implementation help and like all these CSMs and accountability coaches, which is like really complex. I actually believe that with AI, what's going to happen is it's going to go back to where it was, which is sell information. There's such an overload and massive influx of like information right now that I actually believe a lot of people, they're like, they just want to have the condensed and like working information that's relevant and needed versus like 80 hours worth of content. So I actually think selling the right information so they don't need to sift through hours of content and kind of find the right one is really going to stand out. Now, second of all, is that I actually believe when it comes down to offer, there's two more nuances, especially in the B2C space. And that is sort of like number one, I would say like the AI agents. Okay, and I'm gonna touch on that in a second. But second of all, what I actually believe to be fairly true when it comes down to the offers is that you want to be sort of like niche. Okay, so people like Dan Coe have done a really good job, but they have a specific information set or specific knowledge that they know. Hey, I know how to like build and monetize a Twitter audience. I know how to write and how to turn one newsletter into X amount of content pieces. It's like a very set and very specifically defined, action that's occurring. It's not this whole thing of like this entire flute set of like, I'll help you build an agency or I'll help you build like a coaching offer, right? It's like a very specific subset. I think those are one of the offers that is going to really work. And thanks to AI, people want to know how those specifics work. I just think that's one of the side effects I think will be more prevalent, like having niche offers, that's going to do really fucking well. And the second thing, which I honestly think that's a massive one, especially for the B2C community, is AI agents. Right now we have at least two clients right now that are making a shit ton of money, upwards of like the 7 figures a month, where they have AI agents as part of the implementation path. Basically, to be quite frank with that, what they're doing is they're essentially like, instead of having the clients do all of the work themselves, they do a lot of the work for the client, right? So let me pick an e-com store as an example, right? So basically they have like niches being found for them, they find products for them, or the store is built through AI for them. So a lot of the work is done by the client. Now what happens is, as a result of that, is like you actually allow themselves to charge a lot more because you're not longer selling just a course, you're actually selling sort of like an implementation path or a license to a specific system, which actually allows you to have different offer tiers, right? But also increase the average order value, which is quite massively, especially when you're running ads, but also when you're doing organic content. So I actually think that's one component that I think will be very, very interesting to observe, because now that you have AI agents, that makes the offers a lot more valuable. And if they're trained on specific data or specific information that you're selling, it actually makes your offer a lot more valuable. And the second thing is, honestly, this is really on the offer side, when we look at more on like a B2B spectrum, is really like you sell you. Okay, so what I mean is that right now there's a lot of like offers, masterminds, B2B programs, when you think of like Cole Gordon, Ravi Abuvala, like a lot of these like, bigger names, what happens is they sell you something and like a lot of the implementation is like with CSMs, right? Which is like, by the way, I'm not trying to dick on anyone here, but it's just like an observation. I've personally gone through them and like my issue is this, I want to speak to the source, right? So for me, if I go through a coaching offer, I actually want to speak to the source, which is why I, for example, love Jeremy Haynes' offer. Will Brown seems to have a very similar offer in that, where they say essentially, hey, look, I have the system, you can speak to me directly. And I actually believe that a lot of B2B clients are going to go back to that, because within the offer, you get to have like AI leverage. Okay, so to take a second and look at like Jeremy Haynes' offer. Basically, like what he has is his Jeremy AI bot, which is goated just because of the name. And then he has like the Jeremy live calls, which is like, you can do that with himself, or there's an AI version that you can just speak to over Zoom, or like over whatever video app he uses. And then on top of that, he has obviously like all his content. And so realistically, like you get to chat to him one-on-one, which he actually responds. You get to chat to his like AI bot, which like answers a bunch of questions, and you get to do live calls with AI Jeremy. So like there's a lot of like one-on-one access, because at the end of the day, I don't want to speak to someone that was just trained on the information and maybe has lower level experience. If I'm a business owner, I'm trying to solve serious business issues, I actually want to talk to someone that gets it and who's like levels above me, because otherwise it just, to me personally at least, doesn't make sense. If I buy into, let's say, content coaching, I don't want to speak to some underling who's never really posted content and doesn't get it, I want to speak to the guy who I'm buying into. And so I think on a lot of the B2B offers, I think that's what people get into. And so on top of that, what's going to happen is basically like tools. Jeremy Haynes in particular has a few AI tools that he's built based on his knowledge and based on his practices. That just makes it so much easier. I could literally like have my Facebook ads scripted by Jeremy AI, which is unbelievable. And so I think a lot of that will be centered around like AI leverage, which I think will be amazing from an offer perspective. Now, to kind of go onto the other spectrum of things that I believe to be fairly important, when it comes down to, let's say, B2C, I actually think the number one benefit of AI will be like margins. Right now, a big part is like team, okay? Because, for example, when you think about it, like when you have like CSMs, you have obviously like SDRs, like setters, whatever. You basically have like, let's just look at like a department of like marketing. You might have like a media buyer, you might have a copywriter, then you have like a content creator, and then you might have an editor. On top of that, you might actually have like a creative director. What's really going to happen in my eyes, I think teams are going to actually lean down and actually be like fairly efficient, because now with AI, thanks to AI agents, if you have and then on top of that, you would have here a CMO, right? So right now, if you have a CMO, technically speaking, or someone that's really in charge of marketing, he can have, I'm not sure about the media buyer yet, but like this, and this can all be replaced with AI agents or AI tools. Essentially, what I can do is I, as a CMO, I pay one salary and then have like, one or two like AI agents. And based on the correct data and them understanding the foundational stuff of things, you can actually do all their jobs in a much more efficient time. And so I think AI within an internal perspective is going to allow you to be much more efficient and less lackage, which not only makes you probably more efficient, helps you make more money, but also it actually saves you a ton, because you don't need to do all these costly staffs. Because then once you have this whole kabang, what you then will end up needing is you need a head of HR, head of staff. And that's where it gets really corporate and really unenjoyable to run this whole shebang, in my personal experience. Okay, so with that being said, I think obviously you can save a lot of team costs, right? Which obviously makes margins a lot more sexy, especially at scale. You really just focus on one thing, and the one thing that you want to focus on is sort of the marketing and sales element. The second thing is efficiency. So what I mean by now is like, for example, let's take sales as an example, right? Let's say you have like a call recording that then goes to like Slack, and then that goes to like maybe a sales coordinator that skims through. He then sends it to like a sales director, and then that person feeds it back into the CEO if needed, right? This is obviously even optional. But what happens right now is like if you have call recordings, you have like AI agents. It literally goes like a call recording goes to, Slack, it goes to the AI person. And then from there, that's already one process, which is probably like one step. And then from there, it goes directly to the sales director or the CEO. Now, what happens is by cutting out the sales, this person, and like maybe even like a salesperson filling out a report, they actually take their impartiality out of it. So basically I can go up and be like, hey, this based on my standard of how I want to sell, this is the feedback. And so you get very impartial feedback. And because you don't have two people or like three people almost that are like emotionally involved, you actually now can be super efficient, because now what you're doing is you're pretty much just jumping in and you're just like, okay, cool, very impartial. This is what's happening. These are the elements that we need to improve. And then from there, you can make faster decisions versus waiting for every single person to report to one another, conclude, and then draw back to you. And on top of that, if you just have a much higher standard you set for yourself and your organization, you usually get almost draw back by people who don't. You actually get to be a lot more efficient, which I think is going to be pretty amazing. And so that's really the benefit that I see within that sort of realm. Okay. On the B2B side, I think, look, the biggest one that I see is like from an offer perspective, you sell a lot more like AI leverage included and you sell more of you, right? But also on the delivery side, like you get to do a lot more stuff with like a leaner team. For me, if I'm doing anything internal, I don't need a massive team. Like if I wanted to have like a one-person consulting business, it would probably be fairly possible. Not for me because my business partner is like a very crucial part, but like at this point, it could literally be like CEO, which is me. Then I have, content, which like my AI agent does that and I just record, sales, like you might have like a sales rep, right? And then off of that, you might have like delivery, you pretty much have like an EA maybe, and like maybe like a PM, and then on top of that, you have like an automations guy, which probably you don't need in the future. But like pretty much at this point, you have like 3 people, maybe like, sales rep here and maybe like a DM person. So you have like 5 people and you can run that to like multiple $1 million every single month. So I think as a whole, what I've really seen in this common theme is that within AI, what we're allowing us to do is like the offers are going to be much more sexier, right? Because either you just sell the flat out info, or you're actually making it sexier of like, AI agents, or like, making it super niche based offers. And so as a whole, you get more margins, which is my assumption here, right? Even though competition increases per se, and you get to be a lot more efficient, right? Now, the downside to it, which I want to point out as well, is the fact that like everyone's going to start looking the same, right? So basically, like my advantage would really be, if I look at this AI space, is data/IP, because everyone's going to train on the same bloody YouTube videos. Everyone's going to have the same tools and sort of basic prompts. If you have unique data that, can't be found publicly, if you have intellectual property knowledge that is just not commonly available, that's really going to be your leverage, right? And the second thing, which I actually think is even more prevalent, is brand. Okay, everyone can create content, but those of you who have a personal brand, who like stand for something, who actually have an opinion, have like specific like knowledge that really works for them, and they can demonstrate that online through, short form or long form content, they're really going to stand out. And at the end of the day, people buy from people. And so what's really going to happen is, I actually think it's going to be this 80-20 principle where like everyone's going to have the same AI generated ads. Everyone's going to run the same, sort of like playbook. Everyone's going to have these AI tools and AI offers basically. What's really going to set someone apart is like how they connect with you, right? Technically, I could go and have an AI agent create this video using my face, but me speaking directly to the camera, me doing that type of video is really what might actually set me apart from someone else that would probably want to sell you something on content. And so what I actually believe is that like the best brands, it's already happening now, but on the B2C and B2B side, the best brands are really going to dive deep into content. And the reason for it is because yes, you can automate content, you can have AI influencers, but it's the human to human connection, like the emotional intelligence component where you deeply connect with someone's opinions, is where AI, at least for now in the foreseeable future, is not going to overtake us as humans. And so to me, that's one thing I would personally dive down in, and we're obviously doubling down on. So while you have some levers here that you can pull, which I honestly think will make you a fuck ton of money, I would really say like putting deliberate effort into building your personal brand, like building like an audience of fans, is going to be an absolute game changer. Because there's a million people that teach you how to build a personal brand or how to, grow your business, but there's only one Iman Ghazi, right? That kind of has that, where you have that connection with, or, when you're trying to run like a freelance brand scaling stuff, or like whatever it is, an agency, there's only one Brett Scales, where you're like, God, I've seen this kid, like he's so cool, I want to be like him. That's a really strong buyer's emotion, So with that being said, what do I want you to take away from this? Like AI is going to be positive. It's going to make you more efficient. It's going to bring you opportunities for like new offers. But the 2 downfalls is like that you just use it to like automate and like take the human out of it. You want the human element in there. And the second thing is that you're going to do it the wrong way. So the way people look at content is like, okay, I'm going to just let AI do the content. And then when they use it, they don't understand the difference between good and bad content, or like good and bad outputs. And so the downfall for it is like, if you basically like, if you have AI, right? And like AI can create viral scripts per se, but they might be like AI content, right? And then there's bad viral, where like people call you like you're a misogynist and like basically like all your ICPs liberal, for example, and then you get all of them hating on you. Not really good. Or you get good, where like you maybe get like 100K views, right? And they're all your ICP, they love what you say, they really resonate with you, like it really helps. Or you get 1 million views, but your ICP is shitting on you. So if you don't have the discern knowledge of what's good and bad, you cannot discern what AI is feeding you. And so I would say, whilst there's a big of advantage here, the one thing as a human you want to pay attention to is the brand aspect, because if you understand that one, you have a competitive advantage over everyone in your industry. I hope this gave you some value. If you have any opinions on how AI is going to affect, the info space, please drop in the comments. It's nothing more like thinking about than how, the info space evolves, or like what we can evolve with this whole space. And yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.